let's break down what could be one of the best boxing matches of 2026. Xander Zayas versus Jaron Ennis. Two undefeated fighters, two future stars, no doubt. Two champions entering the biggest fight of their careers. The fight is scheduled for June 27 at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, with Zayas defending his WBA and WBO junior middleweight title against the former welterweight champion Boots Ennis. This matchup is basically technical boxing and discipline versus athleticism and explosive versatility. So let's break it down. At just 23 years old, Zayas has already become a unified world champion at 154 pounds and remains undefeated. What makes Zayas special isn't one single weapon, it's how complete he is. First, we gotta talk about the technical fundamentals in his skill set. Zayas is one of the most polished young fighters in boxing. He fights behind a strong jab, maintains excellent balance, and rarely gets out of position. He's not reckless, he's methodical. And that also leads to his ring IQ. For such a young fighter, I always say this about Zayas, he shows tremendous patience. He's calm, he's composed, and it's obvious he sticks to his game plan. He doesn't chase knockouts, right? He breaks opponents down over rounds and consistently makes adjustments. And that goes to one of his biggest strengths, which is the body punching. One of the most underrated parts of Zayas' game is his body work. He attacks the ribs and solar plexus early, slowing opponents down as the fight progresses. And that's something he does throughout his fights. No matter how long the fight is going on, that's always a method that displays in his fighting style. And of course, we have to talk about the composure, which we already touched on. Many young fighters get emotional under pressure. We've seen this over and over again, but Zayas stays calm. And I think that's really a special trait. Whether he's winning or losing rounds, he sticks to the game plan. And that's going to play a big factor in this matchup with Boots Ennis. And when we take a quick look at Zayas' recent fight record, his victory over Barrow earned him the unified champion status and proved he can win tough championship rounds. It was a tight fight for him, but it was easily his win. Alright, before that, beat Jorge Garcia, Slava Spomer, Damian Sosa, Patrick Teixeira. Alright, decent opponents here. I'm not gonna sit here and act like these guys are tough opponents that prove some type of test to show that he's an elite fighter, but the skills that he displayed in every single one actually shows how good he is. It's not something to debate. The guy's a good fighter and you can tell he has a lot of potential. Now let's talk about Boots Ennis. I mean, it's obvious many believe Ennis is one of the most gifted fighters in boxing regardless of weight class. The guy is pound for pound good. And one of the biggest objections to him is, has he really been tested? Just like Zayas, I feel like the potential has shown itself. He's undefeated, owns an incredible knockout ratio, and has long been viewed as a future pound for pound star. And I do believe he will be a future pound for pound star if things align well in his matchups and his career. So when we talk about the fight style of Ennis, we have to talk about the athleticism. That is the number one thing you see when you watch Ennis. Boots might be the most naturally athletic fighter in boxing. His speed, his reflexes, his explosiveness, everything jumps off the screen. It's obvious once you see him fighting. It doesn't have to be an entertaining fight or anything like that. It's obvious this guy is a natural. Of course, we have to talk about his switch hitting ability. Ennis can fight orthodox, he can fight southpaw, he can transition between the two effortlessly. Depending on how the fight is going, he knows when to make that switch. And that creates matchup problems for virtually everyone. Of course, we have to talk about Ennis' knockout power. Boots has real, authentic power. Not just one punch power, fight-ending power from multiple angles, any type of punch. I mean, the man has 31 knockouts in 35 victories. That obviously tells you that's a fighter who has power. And that leads to his offensive creativity. He's very unpredictable. He attacks with unusual angles, combinations, and timing. That unpredictability makes him incredibly dangerous in any matchup. Looking at Ennis' last 5 fights, you've noticed here 3 TKOs in his last 5 fights. Of course, his fight against Cody Carley was cancelled, so that one doesn't really count. But this is pretty much how his record looks. I mean, when you watch him, he's either going to have a dominant decision win or a TKO. He's a finisher, and that's something that shows both in his fight style and his record. So when it comes to the stylistic matchup, this is where things get really fascinating. Fundamentals versus athleticism. That's what this is, all right? Zayas, like I said, technically disciplined. He has the strong fundamentals. He has an excellent jab, smart body work. Ennis, on the other hand, he has faster hands, more explosive, greater versatility, and more dynamic when it comes to his offense. So this is one of those fights where the cleaner boxer meets the more gifted athletes. We do have to talk about the experience at the elite level. Despite being older, Ennis has fought more championship rounds and has spent more time facing class competition. That experience advantage could become critical in the second half of the fight. The longer it keeps going, the more we will be in Boots Ennis' world, in my opinion. I'm not saying Zayas can't handle that type of adversity, because honestly speaking, when you watch Zayas fight, right, there's really nothing to complain about this guy. He's a clean boxer, he's technical, he sticks to the game plan. There's really nothing I see in him and I'm like, yeah, I wish he had the finishing ability, or I wish he was faster. He has all that. So not taking anything away from him, this is definitely the biggest fight that he's gonna be in. And we do have to talk about the adaptability. And I feel like this is another edge for Ennis from what we've seen so far when you watch both of them fight, right? Because he can switch stances and attack in multiple ways. He's harder to prepare for. And in my opinion, that's not going to be an easy task for Zayas, because pretty much in his training, he has to spar with fighters who are southpaw, spar with fighters who are orthodox, or spar with someone who can switch stance. But there are definitely several ways that Zayas can get the victory. The blueprint is pretty clear, right? He's going to try his best to establish the jab early in the fight. He can't allow Boots to dictate range at all. The jab must be working right from round one. Once this man hears that bell, he needs to start working on that jab, and that will lead to him attacking the body. This is something we always see Zayas display. Like I said, he's going to try his best to slow Ennis down, take away some of the explosiveness in the later rounds, because Ennis, like I said, he's a good athlete. He can keep going, he has good cardio, but if Zayas keeps landing those jabs, landing those body shots, Ennis is only human. He will start slowing down, and that's where he can take advantage. And of course, Zayas, you would expect him to stay disciplined in this fight, because he's always disciplined in all his fights. This cannot become some type of athletic shootout. If it does, Ennis is gonna win that, all right? If Zayas starts trading recklessly, he's playing Boots' game. That's exactly what Boots is going to try to do, and we're gonna get into Boots' fight style, but he's going to try to make this more of a dogfight, more of a fight where we determine who's more athletic, who's stronger, who has more cardio. Zayas needs to stay disciplined and stick to his game plan. And of course, Zayas has to make this go as long as it can. Of course, he should look for the finish, but he's not gonna be trying to be reckless about it. But it's important that he wins those championship rounds. If it gets into the championship rounds, he's going to try his best to make the fight close entering maybe round 9, and he's going to trust his fundamentals. That's what he always does, right? If Zayas executes perfectly, he can actually win this fight by a decision. And there's a clean pathway for him to do that. Now, when it comes to the path to victory for Jaron Ennis, the plan is actually simpler, right? Zayas is straightforward, but it's even easier for Ennis. I'm not saying it's going to be an easy fight for him or it's an easier way for him to win, but when you combine their fight styles, these are things that Ennis always does, and he's going to find success in actually doing the same thing he always does, right? He's going to try his best to use his athletic advantages, force Zayas into uncomfortable exchanges, and he has a lot of time to do this, right? But he's going to start doing that early in the rounds. Maybe not round 1, maybe use round 1 or 2 to fill out the moment, see what the game plan is, and then start trying to mess things up. And as the rounds keep going, you're going to notice Ennis is going to increase the tempo. He's going to push the pace that Zayas hasn't experienced before. Like I said, I think Ennis is the most experienced fighter that Zayas has faced. Ennis is going to try his best to put Zayas in the place that he hasn't been yet in his career. At least we've not seen that. And of course, the finishing instinct is going to kick in. Ennis is going to try to hurt Zayas late. The longer the fight goes, the more opportunity Ennis will find. If Boots starts landing consistently, a stoppage becomes very possible. And as the fight keeps going on, you would notice the combination of the increase in tempo, him switching stances. Another thing Ennis is going to do for sure is switch stances. He's going to keep Zayas guessing, never allow him to settle into rhythm. Once Zayas gets used to one stance, watch Boots switch it up. It doesn't matter. He doesn't have to be failing at that stance or looking bad at that stance. He's going to switch it up no matter what. He doesn't let fighters get comfortable, and I think he's going to do that a lot in this fight. The biggest X factor in this fight, in my opinion, is whether Zayas can handle the athleticism. Look, it's obvious. You can watch Zayas and respect Zayas, right, for taking this fight at such a young age. All respect to Zayas, right? He's the champion. He's defending this belt, but it's not something we see every time. This is what I love about Zayas. He's doing things that a lot of people don't do at his age. In warm-up fights, fighting cans, trying to build that record. The man is this young and he's fighting Boots Ennis already, right? At such a young age. But it's undeniable that Boots Ennis is a significant step when it comes to competition. Zayas has not, like I said, fought anybody close to someone as good as Ennis, right? And that's where it makes this matchup compelling. That's why I'm really excited for this one. We really don't know how Zayas will respond until the bell rings. We've not seen him in this type of competition when it comes to fighting the elite of the elite, which I believe Ennis is. I think that's the biggest X factor here. That's the biggest question. How will Zayas handle this step up in competition? And, you know, this is an outstanding fight. It is. Honestly speaking, Zayas is talented enough to win rounds. His fundamentals are real. His championship mentality is real. But Boots Ennis is one of the most naturally gifted fighters in boxing. He's bigger than most welterweights, right? Now he's settled at 154 for now, right? And he brings athletic advantages that are difficult to overcome. So with that being said, I got to be objective here, and it's a safe pick, but I think it's the obvious pick. This fight will be close in my opinion, but I'm going to go with Boots Ennis winning by a TKO in like the later rounds, maybe around 10. I think Zayas has success early. I think he wins several rounds, but eventually Ennis' speed, power, and versatility is going to start becoming a problem. It's going to create openings that become impossible to ignore. This is not one of those videos where I'm talking about, oh yeah, it's going to be one-sided, it's going to be a wash. He might be, right? I'm not going to be surprised though if Zayas somehow pulls the upset. Like I said, in my opinion, Zayas has a lot of potential. Boots Ennis has a lot of potential to become a star, but it's undeniable this guy is skilled, athletic, and he's a great fighter. All right, he hasn't achieved the title great fighter, but it's obvious he's leading towards that part. Zayas is much younger, and there's still a lot to be seen. He still has a lot of questions to answer, and I think this fight is what is going to do that. So I'm not counting him out, right? He's not going to surprise me if he wins, but based on what we've seen from both guys, I think this is a fight for Boots Ennis to win. No matter who wins or loses this fight, both guys are going to be stars. These guys have a lot of potential. I'm excited for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments though. You think I'm tripping in anything I said, right? If you disagree with me, go off in the comments. If you agree with me, go ahead and go off in the comments as well. Don't forget to like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, as I do consistent boxing and MMA breakdowns and analysis every single week. I'll see you on the next one.